Good evening and welcome to 40 Days Ministries Friday Night Delight. This is our documented session number 228. We are looking at Cain and Abel, part 2. It is November 7th, 2025. Tonight we continue our investigation into their story with the intention to see what lessons we may glean from something simple and from well-known parts of Scripture. We're going to do a proper deep dive here. And if you look at the text, it's Genesis chapter 4. We'll try to get through chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. We're not deep diving into the verses, we're deep diving into the message of the verses, being a lead up into the world's first murder. The Hebrew word for Cain, friends, you may see it here in the interlinear. This word here for Cain, it's 7014. Do I have that brought up? Yes. Get this. Cain, it's not pronounced Cain. I told you all last week, Cain and Abel are not Cain and Abel. Not that the guys aren't the guys, the names aren't correct. We see Cain, as you see here, but it's actually transliterated as Qayin because it's pronounced Cain. 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 So from henceforth, I will try to refer to Cain by his proper name. Yes, I know we call Jesus Jesus when he was Yeshua in the Hebrew, right? But as Yeshua was translated or transliterated, that was translated to Eosus in the Greek, because the New Testament was written in the Greek, and in translating from the Greek Eosus, somehow it became Jesus. Saying Jesus is good, saying Jesus is okay. There's nothing wrong with saying Jesus, even though it was Yeshua. The original for Cain, Cain, not Cain, Cain. And it would be best to say Cain. I'm not trying to be special, I'm just saying. The guy's name is Cain, let's say Cain. Its meaning, proper name of a people, location, proper name, masculine, okay? Cain, it could also be spelled Kajin, but the J is pronounced like a Y. That's why you don't see Kajin often, because we might read that as Kajin. And then somebody will be like, yeah, Cain's pronounced Kajin. No, it's not pronounced Kajin. It's pronounced Cain because the J is pronounced like a Y. This means the proper name of the eldest son of Adam and Eve. Eve herself gave us the meaning. So we go to the word of God. She bore Cain saying, I've gotten a man with the help of the Lord. She said that God gave her the ability and favor to produce a man. Now, Eve recognized it was not her. And this is what we should be like. Eve recognized that while naturally she was able to produce a child, this required favor and essentially permission from God for her to do what her body could do. Rarely do we see people giving God that kind of recognition. Most times people do stuff, it's like, I did it. Politicians, I did it. This would not have happened if I didn't step in to do it. Learn a lesson from Eve. People like to hate on Eve, but Eve is the mother of all humanity. And to be honest, here we could see a good reason to give Eve credit. She credited God with the help of the Lord, right? Now, this means that Cain's name and person started out as a mark of favor. This first child. I know I never thought about it before, but it shows us here how privileged Cain was. Cain, was the firstborn of all humans. Think, before this Adam and Eve were created, there were no other people. This was the first baby ever born. I know most of you know that, but it didn't hit me like, like this. Feuding relatives, people who don't like each other. I don't like you, you don't like me. For years now, we have problems. Feuding relatives bond and find peace over babies. Some families celebrate pregnancies and births in all kinds of ways, but feuding relatives find peace over babies. Gifts are exchanged when babies are born or when they're about to be born. Promises might be made. Services will be held because some couple had a baby. Now, I need to say this. Even having a baby has been corrupted today because the common idiots celebrate the news so powerfully when a baby is born or about to be born, but they offer zero follow-up when it comes to raising a child of value. A child should not be raised by one person or two people. A child should be raised by a community. That doesn't mean everybody has a close say in everything about the child, but a child doesn't live in isolation because the child has to grow up in society. And it should take a village to raise the child of decent people, of course. This is why parents need to be very careful about the kind of characters they allow around their children. Think about this one. Many slay queens out there, they are taking pictures, recording videos of dances, fireworks, meal spreads, home renovations, big purchases, all kinds of stuff they post. And they have children. And they never spend as much time edifying their offspring as they spend editing and searching through 10,000 pictures of the same pose to get the exact right one. They take more care to get that one right picture with the right filter. They take more time to do that in one day than they spend in a week interacting with their own children. Children are dragged up and neglected as false images are posted and fake lives are promoted. I told you all that this week I saw a video of a lady who was dancing on dancing by her phone or whatever they was recording. Her baby was in front, like right by where my hand is. Baby was right here. And that woman killed her child shortly afterwards because the child was basically in her way. Not in the video, but the child was basically in her way in her life later on because, slay queens and all. Cain would have been truly celebrated by the whole population of the world at that time. All three of them. Please remember, at that time, Cain was born. It was Adam, Eve, and now Cain. The entire world celebrated this baby being born. Just to reinforce something we should all know, all humanity came from Adam and Eve just over 6,000 years ago. I'm saying this because out there are people promoting this story that other people were there. There is this one about Lilith, who was some woman that rejected Adam because the feminists needed somebody to create. The same feminists who are like, women are equal to men, will be like, well, when it's wartime, women should not go out to war. Or get the women and children out of the country. Where are the feminists then to say, hey, women need to fight the war too, because if they're all equal to men? Let's go to Abel. Abel. His name comes from the Hebrew root. Check this out. Hebel. It's pronounced Hebel. Stronger first part, right? Hebel. It's a little guttural piece. So it's not Hebel, it's Hebel. We've not been pronouncing Abel right. I know in Trinidad we would say Abel or Abel. It's not Abel. Hebel. The second syllable is a lot lower. Hebel means the son of Adam and Eve. It's pretty much what it means. There was no mention in the text of any celebration or special meaning for this one, because just Cain was born, and we have a record of Eve saying, I've gotten us a man with the help of the Lord. Again, she bore his brother, Hebel. And that's it. There was no mention of what she said when he was born. So it's almost like, yeah, we have one of these already, so you're not that special. It gives that impression. I'm not saying that he was not celebrated at all. I'm not saying that. But we can say for certain, based on this record, that Hebel's appearance was not as big a deal to his parents as his elder brother's appearance. If you're parents or plan to be parents, your first child should be celebrated. So should your second child. Okay? I'm just going to call in the middle of all this. Sometimes families get carried away with the hype and their own excitement that they forget what they're celebrating. You're supposed to be celebrating the birth of your child, first, second, third, fourth, 20th. It does not matter. Every child born to a home should be celebrated. Not one more than the other, ever. It happens, I know. That doesn't make it right. Now, their lives would be what's next. Both brothers' lives were not given to us in detail, but we do know their occupations. Now, Hebel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. So this here, verse 2 tells us that. In verse 3, we see a little more about the interaction. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. Verse 4 tells us, and Hebel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Hebel and his offering. But for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry and his face fell. Hebel brings the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. Says a lot. There is a clear difference in the mere verbiage used to describe both men's gifts. Look at the English translation. Let's look at the ESV here. Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. He brought an offering. While Hebel brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. There's a clear difference there. Cain sound like a random gift versus the first of the flock and of their fat portions. Hebel's heart was clear here. It wasn't the actual gift alone. It wasn't that one guy brought vegetables, one guy brought a lamb alone. That had something to do with it. It was the value of the gift in the terms of sacrifice that shows the heart of the giver. Please don't ever think it's how much you give. It's not how much you give. It's the heart of the giver. Because you could bring your whole salary and give to God one day. But your heart is what matters. If you're doing it just so you can go and boast and tell people, yeah, I give my whole salary to some church. Wrong heart. If you do it because, you tell God you want, you have a sick relative, you want them to be healed, or you want to buy a new car, or you have a project coming up, you want success, and you just give your whole salary for it, just for that. Wrong heart. Okay? Wrong heart. Think about it. What's more valuable? Some stray offerings of fruit, some stray vegetables or fruit, right? An offering of the fruit, or the first sign of business growth that took a year to prep and make which would have been the firstborn of the flock. Now I said a year to prep and make. For reference, an ewe can make young from about 8 months, and it takes 5 months for gestation. 8 and 3 is 13. At the least, from birth, an ewe will take 13 months to bear a lamb, at least. Maybe he waited longer because it's smarter to wait a little longer, let them grow a little bit before they make young, right? We should give big when we give to God. This is not me subtly telling you to give 40 days your money. You give to the work of God as you want to be obedient to him. That's between you and God. I'm telling you here, though, comparing the gifts, an offering of fruit does not compare to the firstborn of his flock and of their fat portions. He gave the best. We should always give with a willing and grateful heart. And that's what's indicated here. Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground. I harvested some stuff, God. Here you go. While Abel brought the firstborn of his flock and of the fat portions. Cain was upset by the rejection of his gift. That's why we read his face fell. Now, do we see that attitude today? A half-hearted attempt to give that is embarrassing, right? You give an embarrassing gift, and still the giver is offended when he receives just treatment. And I don't mean just treatment from the pastor or the church. I mean just treatment from God. Some people give God the dregs of their time and effort, and then they wonder why he isn't favoring them. Now, I said time and effort. You can forget money in that case, because people like that, they're not going to give God of their finances. If you value your time and you give God your time, you will be giving your money because your money is not that valuable to you. If you don't value your time, those are the kinds of people that, they'll make sure they show up in every service with the church, but they'll never give $1 because they value the dollar too much. Children of God will give God of their most valuable. And for sensible people, your most valuable resource is your time. And I'm not talking just give your time to go to church. I'm talking give your time to preach the gospel to all creation. Giving the effort to study the word. When nobody is looking and you have free time, instead of sitting back and scrolling on social media, you get into the word and you study the word. I'm not saying sit down and read the Bible only. I mean study the word like you're supposed to know how to study the word. The Hebrew root for regard or favor. The Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. This word is shah. It means depart, be dim, dismayed, have regard, look, turn your gaze, gaze away. In these verses, though, specifically, it means gaze and regard with favor. God looks at our heart and intentions, which are clear by the value of our sacrifices. The word for angry here is chara. Chara, sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Chara. There's a slight roll of the R. Chara. Brown Driver Briggs tells us it means burned or kindled of anger. And this is Cain's behavior. His anger was chara. Burned or kindled of anger. It's also described as impersonal for this verse. So it means that he wasn't specifically angry with a person here. Cain's anger was just with the whole situation. He was angry with the situation. However, he festered in that anger, and it led to the world's first murder. The word for face, because his face fell, why has your face fallen? The word for face here is panim, or Paneh. And it means face of a man, nothing else. There is no hidden meaning here. Literally, Cain's face looked angry after the fair reward was received and the terrible reward was rejected. For Cain and his offering, God had no regard. Verse 6, the Lord said to Cain, why are you angry, and why is your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, and you must rule over it. Verse 6 shows where God asks Cain, what's the matter? And he explains to Cain in a way that shows Cain knows what's right. But he still didn't do it. If you look at how God phrased it, why are you still angry? Why is your face fallen? Right? Not that part. This next piece. If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. God is explaining this to Cain because Cain knows what's what. God didn't ask Cain this, like ask him, why are you angry? Why is your face falling? He didn't ask that because he wanted to know. Let's be real. God knows everything. God posed this question to him so that Cain could step out of his feelings for a moment. He had the chance to vocalize his emotions in that moment. And in doing so, when you talk about your feelings, he would process those feelings in the context of the situation, and he'd repent. God is showing us here how to deal with things with others and with ourselves if no others are around. So if you are overwhelmed by emotions, pause and ask yourself, why are you so angry? And vocalize it. This is why therapists make a ton of money. This is why psychiatrists make a ton of money. People get to vocalize. When people vocalize about stuff, it reduces the emotional stress. When people vocalize and think, it greatly reduces emotional stress. Most people just blabber because they get an audience and they just like to hear themselves speak. That's where the psychiatrist will give you drugs and mess with your life. The thing is, Cain was wrong, but he refused to see that because he was swimming in a pool of misguided anger. God then goes on to warn Cain that sin is crouching at the door. The KJV, I want you all to see the KJV for this. If thou doest well, shall thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. It lieth at the door. That would have worked for the King James people to understand. If we read it today, hearing sin lies at the door doesn't necessarily express what the crouch that we read here means. Sin is crouching at the door. Lying at the door might mean, okay, you're asleep, or it's just occupying space. They would have understood in the King James times what it means. However, for us, to be clear, we read other translations and we see crouching to make it clear to us. Sin here is like a predator about to strike its prey. When we dwell in sin like Cain here, we are walking like careless victims, taunting predators to attack and destroy us, oblivious to trouble. This is why we must not dwell on injustices, unfairness. We must not dwell on offenses, depression, hate, anger, disappointment, etc. Because when we do dwell on those things, sin will overtake us and we'll be a whole different person. We should remember that Jesus taught us to aggressively forgive. When I type that, aggressive forgiveness, very few people ever try that. We're supposed to forgive. Okay, I forgive. Aggressive forgiveness is something that where I mean we go with a purpose and a fervor to find every offense that we hold on to and let it go and forgive whoever has offended us. Observe people that live in past offenses, and you'll see those people for the unhappy and unsatisfied creatures that they are. Even when they smile, their smiles are not genuine, and they're always bitter. With this in mind, we must observe ourselves. Check with me. Are you holding on to injustices, unfairness, offenses, depression, hate, anger, disappointments, etc.? Do we just look at others to see what they have? And when we see what they have, we feel disappointed or sour or angry or envious. When we see other people doing well, is our internal reaction to find fault with how they got there or to find fault with what they have? Do we look down on others because they're not as well off as ourselves? Do we find fault with other people's property, clothes, possessions? When we are with our associates, our close associates, do we engage in hateful gossip? I didn't say look at ourselves first because we're often blind to the issues until we see similarities between ourselves and others in terms of what we think and what we behave. What we behave like. Observing people and seeing what they act like and what they do and finding fault with it is a start for people who can't look at themselves and properly introspect. Half decent introspection will have us looking at ourselves next. And then we'll be like, oh yeah, I'm just like that. I hate that in that other person. And I just realize I do the same thing. Back up now. Let me not do that. God didn't just warn Cain. God also told him what to do with this situation. And he told him what to do with his feelings. You must, its desire is for you and you must rule over it. If you do well, will you not be accepted? Now, we don't read of Cain's responses through this exchange with God. While it doesn't mean he didn't respond at all, I would like to think that he didn't respond with words. Remember, Cain was very angry, right? Raging anger. If you remember, this is chara, anger, burned or kindled with anger. This ain't just some anger, this is rage. That's why I'd like to think, or I picture Cain's responses being grunts or snorts, because he would have been the world's first spoilt and entitled brat. And that's how a raging brat would respond. The parent is talking to him and he's enraged with everybody else, and he'll just say, yeah, Or he'd stoops, he'd sigh, grunt. God told Cain that he must rule over it, the sin that's crouching at the door. The NASB, New American Standard Bible, says, but you must master it. Look at it on screen. The NLT gave descriptive language here. Check it out. But you must subdue it and be its master. So others would say, but you must rule over it. But you must rule over it. English Standard and NIV. But the NLT said, but you must subdue it and be its master. So if you're not sure what it means to rule over sin crouching at your door and its desires, NLT spells it out. You must subdue it and be its master. New American Standard, you must Master it, not master how to use it. This is not like a Sith Lord telling you, use your anger, use your hate. No, no, no. Subdue it and be master over it. Are we master of our sinful tendencies? Don't be too quick to say yes, please. The Hebrew root for rule, where it says you must rule over it, is a word, the word is mashal. Mashal. In this verse, mashal means to rule or have dominion over a human subject, right? Mashal could mean a couple of different things, but in this verse, to rule or have dominion over a human subject. This tells us that our natures must literally live within rules that we set. It also means that these rules these natures need our permission to do anything. Don't let your natures rule over you. This is not an easy instruction to follow, and it requires a lifetime of practice. Most often, it doesn't get easy for us because the flesh is weak, but we get better at it. We get better at ruling over our emotions. Don't be an entitled little idiot letting your emotions rule over you. We're almost done. I just want to look at the murder before we go. Verse 8 says, Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. That verse tells us Cain spoke to his brother and killed him in a field. The wording indicates Cain planned this out. He went to his brother, spoke to him, set it up so that they'll go to the field. And when they were in the field means they were not in the field when they spoke. But it does mean they went to a field. And when they went to this field, they went to the field where Cain planned to kill him. Because Cain didn't just wake up and say, I'm not going to kill my brother. I'm just angry. I'm going to talk to him. Hey, brother, let's talk. And while we're talking, let's go to a field. Oh, I'm in this field. I didn't think about this before. Let me kill you now. It wasn't like that. This was premeditated. First degree. Legal terms, first degree murder. He led Abel to that field and then he killed him. Now, we don't know their ages. So this could have been teens to centurions. I'm saying centurions. I don't even know if that's the actual word. People who are over 100 years. Let's just see if I'm using the correct meaning. I don't think centurion is the right word. Word for, I'm spelling it wrong. People over 100 years. Chat says somebody knows the word. Centenarians. Thank you, Joshua Cooper. Here it is. Centenarian. 100 and oh, that's not even centenarian, guys. People who are over 110. Super centenarians. So I just put centurions in my text. I'm going to just highlight and change that. All right. So Cain and Abel could have been teens, or they could have been super centenarians. But given the context of the situation, I'm inclined to think they were very young. The rash nature of Cain's behavior. This isolated incident didn't likely just happen. They were obviously accustomed to bringing valuable gifts to God as offerings, because they didn't say for the first time ever Cain finally brought an offering to God. In the course of time, Cain brought an offering to the Lord, which means that they probably did this regularly. Okay, our next. Oh, yeah. So I know that for centurion. Yeah. That's the Roman leader of 100 people in the military. Yes, correct. I got that one. Yes. So as far as what they were doing here, maybe Abel was working under Cain before as his older brother, because they didn't tell us the difference in age. And now that he brought the first of his own flock, Cain got jealous. Maybe they were both working for their father and now they're working for themselves. I don't know. We don't know that. But it's likely they were young. Abel's firstborn lamb here might have been the first lamb born since he started working on his own. Not the first lamb born ever. That would have been long before. If this really was one of the firstborn lambs since he started working on his own, I'm seeing here more of how innocent Abel was and how despicable Cain's action was. The root verb kum means arise and stand up. It's here. Cain rose up against his brother. In this verse, kum means to stand up suddenly and with hostility. It wasn't just a gradual standing up or a gradual increase in his anger. His anger was boiling over before, as we met before in the, what was that word? Chad. That anger was boiling anger, festering anger. And finally here, it erupted. He rose up against his brother. This rise up was sudden, stand up suddenly with hostility. When I read that, it gave me the picture of drunk people at a bar or drunk people at a table that get enraged when they play cards and they stand up suddenly and they want to fight and stab and shoot and kill. That's a common thing in Trinidad, from what I understand, by the way. Now, in this case, Cain didn't want to fight. He wanted to end his brother. And that's what he did. The concept of such rage, hate, and planning, it shows how stupid this firstborn of men really was. Cain was aggressive, but he was also aggressively stupid. If you think about it for a second, guys, he could have tried to do better the next time. But no, he held that jealousy against his brother, the one who wasn't celebrated. If you'll remember, based on what we see in scripture, Abel's appearance on the earth was not as celebrated as Cain's. And still Cain was jealous. We're stopping here. We'll close off next week, God willing, with the defiance and his stupidity turning into desperation. And I'll give the lessons that were picked up from what we've done in these two, and that probably that third session. I hope we all studied and we learned something here. All right, new things. Okay, I see Miss Kimberly's leaving. God bless you and keep you, Miss Kimberly. Take care. To all of you who are looking on Facebook and YouTube, and those of you who are here live, this is something that everybody knows. I tried to deep dive into it, and in so doing, we discovered a couple things that were new to me, or a couple of perspectives that might have occurred to us, but it was not as clear to us. It's good to review and redo parts of the Bible that you studied already. You never know what you might see that you missed before. So I encourage you to do so. I'd like to thank everybody who is here live, who shared their time. I'd like to thank those of you who are watching on Facebook and or YouTube for the recordings that you're looking at. Thank you for joining us for documented session number 228, Cain and Abel, part 2, November 7th, 2025. God willing, we'll be here next week to share another one, and I'll see you all then. God bless you and keep you, and goodbye.